Alright, welcome back. So, today we're going to be talking about GUI and how to create some GUI elements inside Unigine. So we're going to head up with the basics and we're going to get our component, and we're going to just call it widgets in this case. And the first one we're going to try to do is going to be a label. And a label is basically just a text. So what we're going to do is we're going to first create it and we're going to give it a text name of hello to GUI. We're going to give it some special properties like what we see out here in the text, and then we're going to put it in a position on the GUI or the viewport. After that, we're also going to add a little callback. Over here is just going to be a connect. Where you enter it says hi, and where you exit it says bye. And then inside the shutdown we're gonna get the main GUI, and if the label is connected to it we remove it and then delete it. And that is the basic of how we do GUI or widgets. And now as you can see, once we go in it says bye, and once we leave it says hi, and all our objects are working perfectly fine. Another one that we can do inside the same component is a button. So for button, there's just going to be a few extra things, and we're going to look at it. We create it and then we give it a text on the button, and then we set it to a certain size. Then we can also do the modifications on the font inside, and then in our case we're just going to put it in this position. We're going to set the font color to red and the button color to black. And then we also set an order. The order is the Z index. The higher the order, the more up it comes. And then we're also going to add a few event functions inside. So over here you can see that sometimes you can add your own enter and leave functions, and the other times you can just add your own components. So both ways are easy, doable. And now to check it, you can see that once we hover over it, it changes the color, and when you leave it, it goes back to its default. And when you click on it, it says widget clicked. So that's your second widget. Another popular widget would be a slider widget. Slider would be your slider scales that goes north and south, or left, right, up, down. And you create it with certain values, and then you also set orientation, being vertical or horizontal. If you set it as 0, you want to set the height, and the other way you want to set it as the width. Then we're just going to put it in a position we like, and we set the color to blue in this case just to see, and then we can add our little lambda function that changes and shows us the value of the slider. So after doing that, checking it inside our little Unigine editor, we can see that we have the slide with the button being a certain size, and then once we click and drag it, we can see that the value has changed, and we can use that value for our own other components and other functions. Another important widget that you should or you will be using is the canvas widget. This one allows for shapes, pictures, and lines and text. So first we will create the widget canvas, and we'll put it as 400 exactly where the button is, and then we can add a shape. In our case we're going to be adding a square. We can set it as a green color, and then we add a point. Now this is where we have to actually use the clockwise method, so just make sure that when you do put the points, you put it in clockwise. Another set we can do is we add a line, and we can call this a red line, and then we can add it at specific points. The more points, the more your lines are going to be. That's very simple with that. In terms of text, we could just add a text. We can set its size, its text, its color, and then you can also set its position and put it inside our widget. So that's very easy. The last thing is actually the image, which you are going to be using a shape, and you're going to just set the texture to whatever image you have, and then you're going to put it in that same coordinate section. So for the text coordinates, this is where we go back to that picture, and as you can see, the text has to, or the coordinate has to match with the clockwise orientation. And once you have that done, what you basically have is a world of canvases. And to see that, you can look right here where we actually have that green square, the blue hello, the line that we have, and we also have that image texture that we had right there. Speaking of images, we can also add an image sprite or a widget sprite, and what that will do is that will give us an image inside our widgets. So we can have like layers of images, so we can have textured layers, and then we can add our shader or sprite. So there are two types. we also have half the size, so we can do some kind of math on it. So the first thing we're going to be doing is actually creating a sprite image, and then we add a layer and we set that texture to the image that we want. Now over here, we're also going to minus it by the size. It's the same as saying translated minus 50%, 50% to center the image. Now we could do the same thing with the shader, where we have everything the exact same, that we center it. We set the texture as random, whatever you like. We can set the width as what we need, and then we can add a material onto the shader, so it actually does any material types. With that, now we have both an image and an image with a material attached to it. Now to add a material, we can just go and create our own material from the graph or make our own shader, whichever one you like. In this case, we have a little moving material that we add inside, and you can see that it basically does that material texture and that. And the other one, we added the same thing, but we added a little bit of logic that is available on GitHub, where you can rotate the image to make it look like it's moving, and we have the RPM looking as we move around on the image, or rotate the image as you see over here. Another one that we're going to be doing right now is going to be actually the object GUI. Now object GUI, basically you have to right click, go on to GUI and create a GUI, and what it does, it creates a flat screen in world space where you can actually add your widgets into it, and it basically becomes your second version of a GUI. So in our case, for this example, we just have a GUI, object GUI, that's basically just going to be the front screen of the TV, and on top of that, what we're also going to be having is a sound source, which basically extrudes sound. Then the next thing we're gonna have is actually a GUI mesh, where you have an arbitrary mesh and you basically create it into a GUI, so it will reflect the GUI inside it as a texture rather than just being a face front or a flat object. So in this case, we're going to be making a GUI object with a video, and we're going to be creating it using the GUI pointer and video. So the first thing we're going to do is connect the GUI node and the sound, and we're going to have a video widget and a sound source. With that, we're going to get an object pointer, or a pointer to the object itself. We're going to get that object. We're going to create a video with a video file. Right now videos are only OGV, and we're going to basically set it as the width and height, and then we set the play. And then we get that sound that we had before, and then we add it to play. And the main thing is we make the video set sound source so it syncs with the sound. And then after that, we add it to the GUI of the object GUI. Now currently that set sound source does have a few errors, so do be careful with it. But for now, it should work. As you can see, the video is being played inside, and I had an extra few logics to basically pause it or restart it and everything. But for now, the video does work. Lastly, we're going to be talking about that GUI mesh node, which is the box that we made. So for that, we're actually going to have the exact same logic that we had for our object mesh GUI. Instead, we're going to be getting the mesh node, and then we're going to get the GUI, and we're going to add a widget. In our case, I didn't show you guys the color widget, but we're going to be adding that. The color widget logic is in the GitHub, so you can check that there. And as you can see inside the little box that we see right now, there's that color widget that is taking over all that texture that we had. And with that, basically you have a GUI texture node. Other than that, there is also another extra logic that I have in my GitHub, which basically shows you how to use the buttons with another component. But other than that, that is everything for GUI. The basics have been shown, and with that, you guys need to get creative and see what you can do with it. Now, this is just the basics. There's more advanced stuff. We will talk about it some other time. Until then, I'll see you all. Goodbye.